Hello and welcome to Spirit inSight. Today we have Kathy McDaniel. Kathy experienced lung failure, which created a distressing near-death experience in 1999. She went on to author the book and the account of Misfit in Hell to Heaven Expat. Welcome, Kathy. So happy to have you here.
Thanks, Loreli. This could be fun.
I just want to start just a little background into your story of how were you raised and what happened to you in your understanding of spirituality up until the point of your NDE?
Well, it started off with my dad when he was about 20 years old in World War II. He was a fighter pilot and he got shot down over the Philippines. He had always attended, well, he was going to college in St. Louis University, which was full of religious Catholics, and he was an atheist, and they would get in all kinds of fights. So Dad's an atheist. He's flying over. He gets shot down. The plane lands upside down on the beach, catches fire. He's trapped in the plane. He can't get out, and it's right where the war is all going around him. People are shooting, and so he says, "Okay, God, if you're out there and you can save me, me and my family will become Catholics." And within seconds, some Marines came out of the jungle, cut him out of the plane, drug him in, and the medic got him. So he was a man of his word. When he got back, it was really cute when my mom tells the story. I was about, I guess, 5, and my sister was about 3, and she was about 6 months pregnant with my brother. So after a mass one day, the priest arranged for them to exchange their vows because they had been married, civilly. So they went up, and here's mom with 2 kids and pregnant, and there was 2 old ladies sitting around row 2 doing their rosaries, and one of them leaned over the other one and says, "Well, it's about time." So she loves that story. So anyway, we all became Catholics, and that meant that we all went to Catholic school. We went to church on Sunday. My dad was a reader. My mom served Eucharist. I learned all the things firsthand from the nuns and the priests. And, I did my novenas, I did my rosaries and prayed like a crazy person, went to confession every Friday night, whether I needed to or not. And, that was my life. So when I got married and got pregnant, and I felt something was wrong with the pregnancy. I'd never had a baby before, but I kept having dreams and weird stuff happening. So I did novenas back to back, 2 novenas. And then I did rosaries, and I just prayed that it felt bad. And I prayed to God. I says, all I ask is this baby lives long enough to be baptized. That's it. So that's what I went in with. The baby was born with severe birth defects. She lasted 2 days, and it was a terrible death. They tried to do surgery to save her, but it was just awful. But I didn't let them start the surgery till they baptized her. So after that, I was a mess. I was very angry with God. I thought, hey, I played by all the rules, and this is what I got. I was really angry, and I thought, and I can't even turn my back and walk away because I'll never see her again. So there was this blackmail thing now God has going on with me. It was a very uncomfortable relationship for quite some time. I did go and have 2 more children and then got divorced, but and then the wheels really came off the wagon. But so that's kind of, was kind of a love-hate thing for me. But God's bigger than you are, and so you got to play by the rules. But the rules bothered me. And I started having doubts about, well, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. And, I loved the parable of the prodigal son. God is like this father who forgave his son anything, killed the fatted calf. Why then did God have to send down his only begotten son, Jesus, to be tortured and murdered so that he would forgive us? You can't have it both ways, people. I had, so I had real doubts and stuff about that my whole life. And then I get up to taking care of my friend up in Seattle who had leukemia. It was supposed to be a 2 or 3 month thing. I was a caregiver with another woman, and it turned into almost 9 months. She broke her foot about 2 months before the end of this thing, and I'm taking care of both of them 24 hours a day. I mean, I got so run down. And then when he died, I was a mess. physically, emotionally, spiritually a mess. And then I got sick. I caught a flu, then I got pneumonia, and then it was guy I'd been dating got me to Doc in the Box just as my pulse stopped. And they put me in an ambulance, revved me up and got me to a hospital. I woke up a couple of days later in an oxygen tent, and I thought, what's going on? There's my family, some of them from California, some of them from Colorado, and I'm in Washington State. And I thought, oh, this is serious stuff. What's going on? They says, well, you've got ARDS, which is acute respiratory distress syndrome. That's usually what kills people when they get SARS or pneumonia. It's called complications of pneumonia. And there was no cure. So they said, you got about a 38% chance of making it. We're going to do everything we can. We're going to try some experimental stuff, and you don't want to be awake for this. So we're going to put you into a drug-induced coma. We're going to give you something called white amnesia. It's going to take your brain offline. You will be able to remember nothing that happens. So don't worry about it. Oh, sure. What's to worry about? So I didn't really have a chance. I had about 5 minutes to make up my mind. This was at midnight, 1999. I remember the ball going down, and I went out. So, fine. I woke up. I became conscious, and I thought, where am I? It was pitch dark. There was no sound. I had not yet heard of the void, but that's where I was. I was afraid to move because I thought, well, I don't even know if I'm standing or sitting or what's going on. It better just hang out. It wasn't like scary or anything. I just thought, oh, okay. And I forgot the whole thing about where I was in the hospital and all that. I was just very in the moment, very in the moment. So I'm just kind of hanging out. And then all of a sudden I notice it starts, this reddish glows happening. And I assumed the sun was coming up so I could probably see where I was. So I was kind of curious. But as it got lighter, I noticed that there was swirling fog all around, which I thought was strange. But I was from Santa Cruz. We had fog, But all of a sudden I thought, it's getting a little warm in here. I wonder what that's about. And then, oh my goodness, what is that smell? I thought, what in the world? Where am I? And then all of a sudden, out of this fog came this horrible voice, like from a horror movie, that says, do you know where you are? I thought, that's not a friendly voice. I said, only thing I could come up with on the moment was hell. And then this voice just went, just like in a monster movie. Oh, was I freaked or what? So I turned to the left. I know that for a fact. And I ran. I didn't care if I stepped in a hole, ran into a wall. I was out of there. But then I was in pitch dark again. And so I stopped because I didn't know where I was going to be. And when I did, boom, it was like people turned on searchlights or whatever. The lights just came out of nowhere. And I thought, what the heck? And I'm looking around, and it was like a bombed out city is what it looked like. Big city, like New York, all the skyscrapers, some of them were falling over. The windows were blown out. There was big chunks of concrete everywhere, rebar sticking out of them. I thought, rebar. I thought, geez, maybe an earthquake. I don't know what happened here, but I was out in the middle, and I could hear moaning and shrieking and screaming and fires. And I thought, I got to get someplace safe. So I tucked in behind some concrete, and my heart, I know, I had no idea I was out of body, no idea. I thought, I was terrified. I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And then I'm looking around, and I could see outlines of was that like a small mob or crowd of people, and they were hard to make out, and they were just barely moving. And I thought, they don't look friendly. And then I thought I saw another person, and he looked like he was ducking out. And I thought, well, I'm just going to go find a better place because I feel like I'm too exposed. So as I ran along, I tried to crawl up this, well, it was a wall thing. And I'm not much one of those people that can climb up mountains or anything. So I didn't do well. And I fell backwards, and I thought, this is going to hurt. And the lights went out. Then the lights came up, and now I'm someplace else. And I thought, what's going on? It never occurred to me. I mean, I've never had this kind of experience, so it didn't. They're all detailed in the book. It was a long thing. The first time I ran into a demon was a little bit upsetting. The lights came up and there was this big, tall person, not a person, is a creature. And I thought, oh, who's he? And he had a stick, like he was going to swat me like a fly. I mean, I was so small. And then he said, do you want to get out of here? And I said, in perfect English. And I said, yes, I do. And he says, well, I got a job for you. You get this done and I'll see that you get out. And I thought, there's something about this guy I don't trust. So the lights came up further, and as far as I could see was blackberry fields, huge canes of blackberries, all intertwined, big thorns on them. We have a lot of them here. I know I've tried to get rid of them in places I've moved, and you've got to have heavy equipment, man, for gloves and all that stuff. So I looked at that and I thought, that's going to take a while. And I thought, well, I got nowhere else to go. I said, sure, I'll do that for you. And he hands me these kindergarten scissors to cut paper. And then he laughed. And I thought, well, he's toying with me, but I am not a quitter and I'm getting out of here. And if that's what it takes. So I got down and I started gnawing away on one of these canes, and it took a long time. And finally it broke free and I went to put it behind me so I could move forward a little bit. And when I turned back around, it had grown back. So Mr. Smart Guy now is laughing really loudly. And I thought, I don't like that sort of an attitude. And I thought, I'm going to get out of here. So I just ignored his laughter and I went back to cutting. When I did that, the lights went out. The lights came up and I'd find myself in another place. I think one of the worst was, it was like a hospital. And I could smell, the antiseptic. It was all white walls, white floor, white ceiling, and there was a door on either side of me. And I thought, doors, that's goods. So I thought, left, right. When I looked up, darn it, there's another one of those demon guys at the end of the hall. But he was quite a ways away. So I thought if I could just duck in a room, maybe lock it. So as I turned back around and he's right there. And I thought, damn, that guy's quick. So I looked up and he's got like a truncheon for prisoners, where they whack the bars and all that stuff. And he says, you got a new job. And I said, swell, what is it? And he says, well, you go in there on the right, you pick up what they give you, you come across the hall and you take it over there, the room on the left, you put it down, you come across the hall, you get the picture? I says very clearly, yes. Okay. So I thought, doors means there might be an exit somewhere. Possibly there's more humans that I can gang up with. I mean, I'm a person I do things. I organize things. I get things done, So I went into the room and it was another white room, but it had gurneys in it all lined up. And I thought, now what? And I thought, well, this is a hospital. Maybe these are medical procedures. So I got a little closer and each of the gurneys had splayed legs with white sheets over it. So whoever it was on their back. And then there was a guy on a stool, one of those rolly stools in front where the doctor had on and doing something. And I thought, and one of the doctors raised his hand. It was all bloody and yucky. And I just stared there and he turned around and said, get over here. It's your job. So I went over and he said, stick out your arms. And I did. And he took what was between that poor woman's legs and put it in my hands. And I could tell by looking that used to be a baby. And I thought, oh, Lord, that's what they're doing here. Oh, no. And he says, go. And so I kind of staggered out in the middle of the room and looked up at the demon. And he says, room on the left. So I thought, I was in shock. I went into this room and Loreli was like a Costco. It was huge and big piles of these baby remains everywhere. The smell was just overwhelming. And I just thought, my heart just broke. And I just put that little thing down and I went out in the hall and I said, no, I can't do that. That's disgusting. It's wrong. And I won't do it. He got a smile and he lifted up the truncheon and he says, every time you say no, it's going to get worse. And I just closed my eyes and the lights went out. And then they came up. a lot of times I would find I was on this like road, and it was just like when you look at a moonscape, it's just desolate with maybe a pile of rocks here and there, but nothing, nothing alive. And then the road just went one way or the other. And of course there were no signs. And I, being a good driver, I went off to the right onto the on-ramp there. And I thought, well, I started walking, and I like walking. And I thought, well, this is better than interacting with these strange people in this area. And I think I'll just take a walk and see if I can't find some other place to go. Well, when I got back in the hospital, I tried to figure out how long I had been in that place. With all the things that happened and everything, I said to myself, 2 years? I don't know. It was a long time because I just walked a lot. And so anyway, I at least on the road, nothing could sneak up on me, and different things happened on the road. One time I was walking, and I know, again, I never thought at all that I was dead, because I was hungry and I was tired and I was crabby, and there was no place to sit down. And at one point I started smelling something really good for a change, and it was something cooking. I don't know if it was bread or cookies or what, but it was wonderful. And it was so dark, it was dusk like, and I couldn't see very far down the road. But as I got there, there was a man sitting in a chair on one side, and I didn't know him. And I thought, how odd. And I looked on the right, and there were tables all heaped up with this beautiful food, like a banquet was going to happen. And there was this lady dressed in a funny outfit. It was like a Chinese outfit. But when she turned around, it was a relative of mine, an alive one. And, again, that made me think, I'm not dead. I mean, here she is. But why is she dressed like that? And I know that her husband had been using her to further his career by having big dinner parties, and she had to learn how to cook, and she herself had been getting more and more depressed. I don't know, it was terrible. There she was cooking, and I said her name, and she looked up and like she didn't know me, and I thought, huh? And I says, I see you're busy. If you could just get me a small plate, I don't care what you put on it, and a glass of water, I'll be on my way. And she just looked at me and says, well, this is for the important people. Oh, and I thought, oh, why would you say that to me? We're so close. And I thought, oh, okay, sorry. Got back on the road. Come to find out later, when I got back, there are very few people that have an experience that have living people in it. In fact, there's a lady named Emily who's doing research on that. I'm signed up for that. So that'll be really fun. I saw 2 living people there while I was there. And it turned out that I had to give them messages. So when I got back, I'll get back to that later. Anyway, so I'm on this road. Pretty much near the end, when I was just about ready to collapse, I had kept hearing in my head, do not despair, do not despair. That's what I was taught all through Catholic upbringing. If you despair, that's the unforgivable sin. I didn't think I was dead or anything, but I knew I couldn't give up. And even though the demons would say, just despair, you're never getting out of here. This is where you will be forever. I kept saying, no, I don't accept that. I'm going to keep trying. So anyway, I get down this road, and I can see people, looks like people, kind of wandering around back and forth across my road, darn it. There's no other place for me to go. I mean, there's no other roads, no signs, no GPS. So I thought, I've got to get through there. They're kind of limping around. They're making sounds. And I thought, oh, these are not people I want to become acquainted with. But maybe if I keep my eyes down and kind of shuffle, I can weave my way through this group, probably about 20 of them, and get to the other side and be on my way. Well, I did that. I muttered and I went through, and all of a sudden everybody froze. And I thought, oh no, they smelled me or something. So I froze. And then the ones that looked like they might be women with the shawls and the longer rags went to the outer part, made kind of a circle. Oh gosh, this is going to be bad. And then the guys got in a circle around me, and they I don't know what was wrong. They looked like zombies. You know, they had skin falling off, and they were ratty and teeth all broken out and everything and dirty. And I thought, oh Lord, I'm looking for a way out. And one of them punches me in the chest and knocks me backwards. Another one pushes me down. And then they all pounce on me. And it was a very unpleasant experience being used by all of these horrible people things. And the last one just leaned into my face with his horrible breath and says, you know, we all have AIDS, and now you've got AIDS, and you're going to get sicker and sicker. And you know what? You can't die. And then he backed up. And I thought, this isn't good. Now what am I? And through that crowd, this woman demon thing came up and pointed a finger at me and said, you're one of us. Come on. So I gathered my clothes and got up, and there was a group of women, probably, I don't know, a dozen or so, looking like they'd gone through what I'd gone through. And she says, come on, get in line. And so I had nowhere else to go. I was running out of steam. I thought, well, at least I'm with these other ladies, safety in numbers. I don't know. Let's go. So we're going through. And I just know that when we looked at where we were going, it was like looking at Alaska, tundra, where there was just nothing but snow as far as you could see. And the wind was blowing, and it was lightly snowing. And I thought, oh, you're kidding me. I hate to be cold. So anyway, you know, we're all trying to keep our rags around us. We're in the single file. And then I got this, you know, we walked for a very, 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 very long time. All I know is that I kind of had this feeling of going above and looking and seeing this single line of women. Just, you could just see like our shoulders, because the snow was up to here by the time we got to where we were going. And that's a long time. And so the lady said, the lady demon, I'm using the term lady loosely, says that there was this cabin, rundown cabin, wasn't very big. And she's in you go, in you go, in you go. So she's pushing us all inside, and there's no insulation. The snow's coming in. We're all just huddled up, freezing. And then she says, now we wait for customers. And I thought, oh, Lord, how could this ever get any worse? And I was really about out of steam. And I was sitting there with the ladies, and I said to this demon lady who also had a stick, they all always had a stick, you know, I've been here for a very long time, and this seems like a particularly nasty, dark day. Is there something I don't know? Making a little conversation. She says, well, of course. Today is Christmas on Earth. That's always the worst day in hell. And I thought, oh no, you know, oh my gosh, no. And I thought, damn it, they're not going to beat me. So I started singing a Christmas carol. And she was across the room, and she turned, so I said mine, Away in a Manger. I love that one. I started singing, and she turned around and said, shut up. And then I kept going, no crib for his bed. Now the other ladies are starting to sing. She says, I mean it. She's lifting this. And I says, the little Lord. She shrieked and jumped at me like a spider. And I closed my eyes, and the lights went out. And then the lights came. And this time it was that warm, joyful, bliss, you know, love-soaked experience. And everything that had happened before was gone. Everything was gone except the joy of being tumbling. Like I felt like every molecule of me was just saturated with love. And I was just, you know how it is. It's kind of nice. So I thought this was wonderful. And I still had the feeling, and then the light seemed to be kind of diffusing, and I could see that I was in another white place, but to me, it looked kind of like the walls and the floor of a cathedral that's all marble, white marble, and it was glowing and it was beautiful. And I kind of looked at something, caught my eye, and there was a big, long, like architect's table, which was a strange thing, with a great big book on it, open about halfway. And I thought, they were showing me something in that book, and I don't remember what it was. And as I look forward again, oh my gosh, there's my friend, the one that died, a month before, that I took care of, that I'd been engaged to for 7 years. It was my best friend. And he looked great. And I thought, what's wrong with this picture? I just saw him a month ago, and he was all mottled. His skin was horrible. His hair all fell out. And now he looks about 35 instead of 53. And he's laughing and he's looking at me. We used to play jokes on each other, like, I know something you don't know. And I thought, oh dear, he doesn't know he's dead. I don't want to be the one to tell him. And then he really started laughing. And I thought, oh, wait a minute. Boy, I was really being sharp. If he's dead, I must be dead. And this joy and bliss and everything is heaven. I made it. Oh my gosh, I made it. Despite what I was taught, I just got here. And then he came a little closer and he said, oh, Mary Kay, you've got too much left to do. And I thought, no, I think I'm getting thrown out, and I crossed my arms and I said, no, stamped my foot like a 2-year-old, not going, no. And the lights went out. And then the lights came up, and I was in a little, I think it was like a timeout room. I was really angry, and it was a lovely little, field with a stream. And I followed the stream down and met a couple ladies. And anyway, then the lights went out and the lights came up, and they were way too bright, and there were people milling about. And I thought, oh no, I'm back in hell. And I hurt, and then my daughter turns around and says, Mom's back. And I thought, back from where? What's going on? And then my mom, my dad, they were all huddled around me and talking to me all at once. And I was terrified, just terrified. I thought, no, this has all been too much, and I'm not in heaven, and I am really angry. It's a good thing I can't talk right now, because I had that thing in my throat and all this other stuff. Because my mom says, oh, Kathy, we sent a prayer circle all the way around the world, and we brought you back. And I thought, if I could get my hands on you, I would show you my thanks. But talk. So anyway, it was awful being there. I weighed 86 pounds, and the doctor came in and examined me the next day. I could blink and move one finger. All my muscle mass was gone. My muscle memory was gone. And I heard the doctor say, we just don't know how brain damaged she is. I mean, she won't be working. She might drive a car. She's going to need help. I was 53. I had my own business. I mean, I had been independent, no. So it was not good. I was afraid to close my eyes. I was afraid the demons were going to come back and get me. It was just terrible. So I was in the ICU for a month. I was in rehab hospital, physical rehab, learning how to climb steps and walk and turn over and crawl and swallow and button and all the things, like I was a baby. I had to learn all that stuff over. Very humiliating, very, very terrible experience. And I finally got out, and then it was recovery time, and my boyfriend asked me to marry him, and I thought it's better than living with my folks. So I'm 53. It took a long time to recover, and I didn't know what the hell to do with that experience. Nobody talked to me about it. I tried to tell my parents, my mom, and she says, Kathy, what did you do to go to hell? It's like, I don't have a good answer for that. I know I wasn't perfect, but I didn't kill anybody. So I couldn't answer. They don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. It was just the drugs. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. I'd always been a writer. I always did diaries and wrote stories and all that. And I thought, maybe if I just write this out, I can get it out of my brain, put it in a drawer, and it'll go away like a bad dream. Maybe. No, I wrote it and wrote it and wrote it. And I went to my therapist and told her. And she said, I'm going to have to put PTSD on your chart, dear. And I have no idea how to help. So that was all I got there. So I kind of struggled to get my life back, to get my strength back, to get, but it haunted me, obviously. It haunted me. And then I was so homesick for heaven. Just take me. And this whole thing about you've got too much left to do and that book halfway open. And I thought, expletive, you know, I'm 53 and I'm halfway through. I don't want to be here. And finally, about 10 years later, almost 12, I think, there was a series of synchronicities I was explaining to you. I met this person that just told me to go to this speech somebody was given in their house that she saw dead people or something, you know, a medium or something. And I thought, maybe I'll go to that. Well, it didn't help me. And so the next time somebody was going to come, I said, no, thank you. And he says, oh, you got to go. I mean, you got to go. My wife's putting this thing on. There's nobody showing up. You got to go. And it's like, well, all right, I'll go, but I'm going to sit on the outside aisle next to the door, and I will be there until that woman starts to speak. If I'm supposed to be there, if I'm and meet somebody, which is what I heard, this voice thing started saying, you got to go, you got to meet somebody, you got to go, you got to meet somebody. If they're not in sitting next to me by the time this woman starts, I'm out of here. So I did. I went, and I didn't even, you know, put my purse down. I just sat there on the outside row. There were 2 seats next to me. I thought, perfect. The door is right there. So they're giving all the announcements and all of that stuff. And I'm looking at my watch and I'm thinking, okay, I'm starting to get ready to stand up. The door opens. 2 ladies rush in, step in front of me and sit in those seats. I thought, I looked down and one of them has got a book. It says near-death experiences. And I just looked at her. I said, you write that book? Yeah. Me and my partner wrote this book. I just shook my head. Shit, now I got to sit here. So at the break, she said, did you have a near-death experience? I said, I don't know. Something happened. I don't know what it was. I said, did you? She goes, no, no. And I thought, yes, you did. Why aren't you telling me? How do I know that? So she says, here, I'm going to give you a card. This is for the IONS group in Seattle. I lived in Gig Harbor, which is about 45 minutes away. You want to talk to Greg and tell him that I told you to do that. And she gave me her name and all that. So I listened to this other medium lady, which didn't impress me, but I got home and I got the damn card. So I didn't do it for a long time. And then my marriage started falling apart. It was almost Christmas. I was really down, really, really, really down. So I picked up the card and called him. And it was wonderful. He was pushy, but he made me tell my story. And then eventually he cajoled me into coming up to Seattle. And I hadn't been there before. And it was kind of interesting to walk in there and see all those people. Oh my gosh, you know, I had no idea that there was all these people. And it didn't impress me. And the next month I didn't want to go, and the voice is saying, you got to go, you got to go, you got to meet somebody. And it's like, oh, here we go. And I did go, and I met Louisa. I don't know if you know her, but I made myself sit on the end. There were 20 seats empty everywhere. And some guy named Eben Alexander was talking. I'd never heard of him. So anyway, I'm sitting on the edge, daring somebody to sit next to me. And some lady walks in. She walks down. I can see her. I'm not looking at anybody. I see her out of the corner of my eye. She walks about 10 rows ahead of me. She cocks her head and stops. She backs up. She doesn't turn around. She stops. And then she comes all the way down like 15 chairs and sits next to me. Well, I didn't say anything to her, and I thought, oh, this is just weird. Anyway, we got through Eben's, first half of the speech, which blew me away, because he was in a coma and all this other stuff, or out like a light. And I was starting to feel like maybe this is going to be helpful. So at the halftime, I turned to her and I said, I was supposed to meet you today. And she says, yeah, I know. And I said, wait a minute, how do you know? She said, well, they told me. And I says, who told you? The voice. Don't you hear the voice? I said, yeah. And she says, you'll get used to it. So we became very good friends. And she's the one that talked me into giving my speech. She said, I'll sit right in front. You look only at me, ignore everybody else. And then I'll do that for you, and which we did. So finally, when I got up there, and of course, I don't know if you've met Kimberly Clark Sharp, but she's quite a character. And she and I did not like each other from the get-go. Right now, we're really close friends, but she was just telling me what to do and what to say. And all of a sudden I said, I don't need your help, all right, just be quiet. And then, just, well, so I told the story. I thought they're going to boo me. They're going to throw me out of here. I don't belong. And at the end, when I was in the shack and I'm giving the demon lady a piece of my mind, and I mean, you could have heard a pin drop. They were on the edge of their seats. They were with me. They were with me in hell. And I was so glad. Finally, I didn't feel alone. And at the end, when we got out, yay, everybody's clapping and they're slapping each other on the back. And I thought, wow, what a weird bunch of people. My tribe. They understand. And then all of a sudden, people were saying, yeah, we never hear about these distressing when nobody will come forward. And I said, there's a reason for that, I mean, so that was about 10 years ago. And I'm still trying to pry these distressing near-death experiences out of the woodwork. And we've got an IANS distressing sharing group that I started with Daniel Endy. And we've been able to, we get, 5, 8, 10, they're slowly coming out and feeling safe that this was just an experience. And then I fell in love with Nancy Bush. Her 3 books saved my life. And then to meet her at one of the conferences, and I got a chance to sit and talk to her for an hour. And she says, you got to write the book. And I says, okay, well, it's just going to be too hard. And so when I was leaving that conference, there'd been this woman that had a little cardboard table, and she was a publisher, and she says, do you need to write a book? And I'd always go, put my hand up and walk by her. So the last day when we're leaving, she's putting everything away. I didn't know she was a medium, and I didn't even know what that was. She steps in front of me and says, you need to write a book. And and I said, she hands me her card. She said, call me. So when I got home, again, I threw it in the door, but I called her later. She was really, really good about pushing me. I always need to be pushed and to write it. And at first she said it had to be this many words. And every time I'd call her, it had to be another 10,000 words until it was like 60,000 words. And I just sat down. It was so cool. I would sit down and the words would come. And then I heard all these stories from my ancestors. They were talking to me. I mean, sometimes I have to get up in the middle of the night because somebody was saying, now don't forget to tell a story about, and I'd get up and write down grandma so-and-so. But it was a horrible experience. It was a great experience. It was because I was locked in from COVID. I had nothing to do. And so it took many, 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 many boxes of Kleenex and grief to put that down on paper and get it out. And the book, I mean, my family is all nuts. They're all got great senses of humor. And I had to writing a memoir, you got to be careful. You can't, you got to change the names to protect the guilty kind of thing. So I'm just kidding, Mom. So that had to be done. My mother said all my life, she'd say, oh, Kathy, you've had the most interesting life. You really need to write a book. It wasn't a positive. So she kept saying, but wait till I'm dead. I said, because I don't want my friends to know. So anyway, she was 93 when I wrote the book. And she says, Kathy, I told you. And I says, Mom, I can't wait for you to die, for crying out loud. I might not even outlive you. I'm writing the damn book. I'm going to change everybody's names. My friends will still know. I says, well, then don't give it to your friends, but it's going out. So my dad was really heavy into it. And he says, I always wanted to write a book. And I says, well, write the first chapter, write about how we became Catholic. And he says, I'd love to. So he did. He wrote the first chapter, and it's wonderful. He's got a good sense of humor, but it was a great story. And so it's not a totally depressing book. I mean, there's like 100 and something chapters. And like 11 of them are my hellish experience, and then what happened afterwards and what that meant to me, and it's taken still more time to process these things. I mean, it's hard enough to process one where you're in heaven, but to really wrap your mind, soul, body around why did that happen to me, it's taken a lot, but I finally figured it out. And so it took 23 years. So now I'm doing podcasts, and I'm trying to help people, explain to people what went on and how they can skip the trip, and to find my brothers and sisters that are still struggling. So there, I hope that wasn't too long.
No, that was beautiful. And, I really love that, you're willing to step into that light and put yourself out there, because people need to hear these things. And it's important to know that this can happen to you, but you don't have to stay there. I was wondering, could you just talk a little bit about how you understood how and why you had that hellish experience, and what pulled you away from it and your understanding of it?
And I think it was Nancy's book. She somewhere in there said something like, the hellish experiences are for the brave people, not the damned ones. And I'm paraphrasing there. I told her that later. She says, I said that? And I said, yes, you did. You just didn't realize it. It was just in the flow of something. That's what I got. And I thought, okay, I'm brave, not damned. Why is that? Well, in a nutshell, we plan our lives. We plan the experiences we want to have and what we want to accomplish and what we want to learn. So I finally had to realize I planned that. Okay, let's figure out, Kathy, why you planned that and what good it would do. Well, people needed to hear that what you're taught in religion sometimes is not true. I was taught my entire life that when I died, I would go to purgatory, because nobody but people like Mother Teresa do straight shots. Everybody else has got to pay. You've got to go. It's a place like hell, Kathy, but you get out. That's the difference. And you will suffer and burn your sins off before you can go purified to God. That was never one of my favorite stories, but I bought it, So I made my own hell. When I died, I expected that to happen, so I manifested it. There it was. I took all the terrible things that happened in my life and I made them even bigger and worse. And I made my hell. I constructed it. And then I got that little safety, thing at the end to get out. But so I'm here to tell people, and I got to say, about 85% of the people I talk to are ex-Catholics. Something to think about. So it's well known that most of us drop our religions and become spiritual, not religious. And this is why this incorrect teachings, because God is all loving and all forgiving and never condemns anybody. I mean, we are part of God. God can't condemn himself using him just because it's source. But anyway, so that's what I've been told or pushed to come back and explain to people. It's not true. And if you don't believe it, if you can just understand and trust in God's love and forgiveness, you just go and have a nice life review, and that's not going to be real comfortable if you've done some things that you're ashamed of or wish you hadn't done. But it's not a judgment. It's not, it's just you understanding how you did. You wanted to learn all these things. And here's, the test results, okay, I did really good there. There, I could have done a little better, and then you get to feel what it felt like to interact with you So it's a very learning experience. If I was really mean to my sister or whatever, I can feel her sorrow, her pain, her disappointment. And that doesn't mean God's doing it. It means I'm understanding as a soul, I'm learning what those consequences are. It's really a beautiful thing. And I want people to feel more comfortable around it.
Thank you so much, Kathy. My other question is, you mentioned that you saw, I think it was 2 living people in your
Yeah.
experience, and that you ended up having a message for them. Can you get into that a little bit?
I can't reveal the names, of course,
Well, that's
but
okay.
yeah, the first one, we were really close, and she was a person that had just a really quick wit, very funny, but a little biting at times. You had to kind of be careful. And she was very into looking good. I mean, she always looked very professional, and hair was nice and everything. And so my message to her was, one needs to spend more time on inner beauty than the outer beauty. Okay. So that was a tough one to explain to her. I need to talk to you. It's a real icebreaker to say, I saw you in hell and I've got a message. I mean, people just go, oh, what? So I says, I think, I kind of patted it a little bit with a little love and said, I think you need to think about that. Well, it ticked her off. And she didn't like that message. And our relationship got rockier and rockier. And I haven't spoken to her in about 15 years. So that did not go well. Maybe it's 20 years. The other one, I was a little reticent to try the other one because she was really a close family member. And at the time, she was going through this terrible thing with her husband and all that. And I said, oh, I got a message for you. And well, where'd you get the message from? I was in hell. Oh, for crying out loud. I don't need that right now. I says, well, no, it was just like, it seems like maybe you need to get out of that situation. It's not a good situation for you. She said, I got 2 kids, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, fine. So she went through a depressive time. She got some help and she got divorced. And so it was about, I don't know how many years later, we were at Christmas and she came up with a glass of wine. She said, sit, I want to talk about that hell thing again. I said, okay. So she says, you are absolutely right. Absolutely right on with that whole thing. It was a metaphor for all this stuff. Wow, that is so cool. And I'm glad you told me that because it's stuck in the back of my mind and it kind of gave me the courage to do what I did. So cool. Thank you. So that, 50%.
I run into that too. It's like they eventually come back around. Sometimes it's 10, 20 years. It's like I'm always like, I'm just the messenger. Don't even
shoot the messenger. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right?
But you got to do what you got to do. Yeah.
Yeah, those callings come pretty hard. And that's kind of what I call them. It's like, okay. And you don't always want to be that messenger. So I'm very thankful that you are the messenger.
Yeah,
Well,
I only had the 2 so far, but yeah, but then every time I get on a podcast, I'm the
that's what I
messenger.
mean.
And we were talking earlier about how it's not always well received, and there's been a lot of criticism, but for the most part, it's like you say, you just have to let that roll off. Those aren't the people that were supposed to hear the message. It's the people that do hear the message that say, thank God I heard you talk today, or will get a hold of me later and said, just explain this one little part again. And
Yeah.
it's fun. It makes me feel good. And it doesn't stop the homesickness. I don't know. I think you just never get over that, but that's the carrot, that keeps you going. I got to get, I got this image of like all these chalk marks on a board. And every time somebody says, I'm so glad you help me, I get to cross that person off. And when I get that last person crossed off, boom, I get to go home.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
The callings lead you to the carrot.
Yeah.
And like, I always say, to be humbly of service, and spirit flows through you. And so, delivering our message that we've had these experiences is so important because there are so many people, especially I'm sure, that have experienced distressing NDEs that, don't want to come forward, or they don't want to be the one to say, hey, I created this. Hey, this happened to me, because of that judgment. I mean, the majority of, our Western world is Christian in some former capacity. And like you said, I was raised Catholic as well. So I totally
See, I mean, that's just amazing.
yeah. And so, I totally understand that. And, my 2019 experience, I was, getting all this, I got Jesus, Yeshua, information, and I'm going, and it was totally contrary to the Bible and those experiences. So yeah, it was a real struggle, and much less nobody wants to hear about that part. So it's like, so, you are courageous. I mean, to me, I see why they said, only the courageous choose that path and to see it, because you were strong enough to get through it and out of it and tell the story. And I don't know how many other souls could have done that. So thank you. Thank you.
Well, I think if they realize, they just need to hear that. So I'm really working to put a distressing near death experience or workshop together for the next IANS conference. So say a prayer that goes through. I've got a gig on the SAI to do be on a panel. So I get 15 minutes of being able to say a whole lot in 15 minutes, but it's a start. But we really need to find those people because they're injured and they're hurting and they need some help. At the last convention, the IANS one, me and my partner had just gotten there, and we were getting in the elevator to go downstairs and get our badges. And the elevator stopped, and this, I'll say kid, he was probably 45 or something, got in, and he looked kind of somber, but he had a little badge thing on him. And I got the vibe, oh, something's going on. I always know when I'm supposed to talk to somebody.
Yep.
I said, so you going to the conference? And he said, yes. And I said, oh, did you have one of those wonderful experiences with bunnies and rainbows? And he said, no. I didn't think so. I said, so you had a distressing near-death experience? Yes. So the elevator starts to open, and I said, great. And he says, what? And then I said to my friend, hey, he had a distressing near-death experience. And he goes, great. And he says, what? So we're stepping out of the elevator. We come around the corner, and there's Daniel standing there. And I says, Daniel, I found another one that had a distressing near-death experience. And Daniel says, great. And this kid says, I am so confused. And I said, just stick with me. I said, you came to the right place. So he followed me around for the first couple of days, and, at lunch and breakfast, lunch and dinner. And then he started telling his story a little bit, and by the end, he just came up and gave me the biggest hug. And he says, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't run into you. And that's always the sign.
Right.
Got another one. I says, you too. And he said, well, stay in touch. And he was all yippee skippy. He says, you know what? I went to everything I could go to. And Kathy, why was there nothing about the distressing near-death experiences? I feel like if I hadn't met you, I was the only one here. And I says, that's the point. I says, great. We need to work on that. And I promise we're going to do that. So there's the IANS people still out there wondering whether they should put our workshop together or not. Please. It's needed. It's needed.
It really is
needed.
And I'm so thankful that you have that group. I've referred some people from the sharing group,
Good.
That we have that, but even in that safe space, people will talk about it, but not always in depth, and it takes a lot of love and a lot of encouragement, to speak about those type of things. Or, some have had more spiritually transformative events, not necessarily NDEs, that were very distressing to them. They've admitted later, that it was life-changing and it's what they needed. Sometimes soul needs that kick in the booster.
Well, I think it was the best thing that ever happened to me, now, because it opened me up, I'm enlightened or whatever you want to call it. I mean, all those questions that I had are answered about religion. I wasn't wrong. And my biggest thing now, I've still got the big picture of Jesus next to my bed. And I say, I love you, Jesus, whoever you are. I have no idea who you are. If you were really a historical figure, if you were just a consciousness, it doesn't matter. I got the prodigal son, I got the Good Samaritan, and I got the Sermon on the Mount. The rest of it, pretty much you can keep.
Here's your book back.
Here's your book back. I want my money back.
You are so precious. Yeah, I know. I totally understand that. And like I said, it was a whole adjustment. I mean, did you feel more complete? You know what I'm saying? Like, I know, when I came back from my 7-year-old experience, I told my mom I want to be a priest. She's like, honey, not in our religion. Women can't be priests. And I said, then I don't want your religion. Nature is my
Oh,
church. That's kind of how I live my life. She never mentioned that.
wow.
But
Wow.
yeah, but now it's kind of funny, because it's come full circle, because now
Yeah.
I do the spirituality thing. But
Yeah.
I think it's kind of interesting that, and I kept, that kept being fed to me. I'm like, something doesn't jive in this Jesus, I call him Yeshua because that's what he asked me to, but
Yeah.
experience and the same thing. It didn't line up to what I felt and I experienced even at 7, of that complete utter love and peace. So did you feel kind of like everything came together in the sense of you knew you already had that divine spark within you, that you knew that God, source, whatever, wasn't being represented in its fullness, as far as how people interpreted God, divinity, or anything in our reality?
Well, we're stuck with these little human brains. And it's nobody's fault. There is no way we can ever comprehend what's going on out there. I mean, I'm really into the Gaia stuff now with we are all one source thing, and the what Albert Einstein said about this and that. And that makes sense to me. Now that makes sense. This other stuff didn't. And I'm having fun trying to wrap my mind around, aliens. Now, I heard
Yeah.
that one person that I really, said they were looking at aliens, and I thought, okay. And then I thought, no, wait a minute. If we get to reincarnate anywhere we want, why can't I be a freaking Martian if I want to? And then that means all aliens are part of source. We're all brothers and sisters in the spirit. So yeah, more the merrier. That's cool.
Yeah. No, and PMH Atwater is doing that research on childhood NDEs. They keep asking me to write it. She reached out to me to write.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So,
Well,
but there's a lot of correlation, and that whole oneness is out there. All these different lives going on at once I've experienced. So, it's beautiful that you talk about that, because people who've had NDEs or these STEs that include these type of beings, is no different in acceptance and needing to be talked about as the distressing NDEs. And to some people that was very distressing. They thought they got abducted and buried.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I
No,
think,
it's so interesting how little we know here on
right.
Earth. And then people say, well, why can't we breathe in? Well, no, that's cheating. If you knew what was going on, you'd say, oh, this is just this. And no, you gotta be wiped clean and play the game. It's like going on one of those reality shows on television, except those are pretty fixed. But but really, when you just stop and kind of let go and lighten up and think, what's 100 years compared to eternity? And you signed up, Kathy, to do this, and for all the people in your life, and you're going, you signed up. So I sat down the other day and I thought, okay, this particular person, drives me nuts. What am I learning? Okay, I'm learning patience. I'm learning kindness. All these things I'm learning. And that was the thing they gave me when I got back. I asked God, I says, I'm done with the thou shalt nots. Okay. Give me something I can, live real. So it came in two little words at a time, because I can't remember anything, but I remember, this has seared my brain. They said, be loving, kind, merciful, forgiving, encouraging, grateful, non-judgmental, and useful. So that's what I say to my little Jesus picture in the morning. Help me to be, this is my intention. I want today to be these things. And, if people can just remember loving and kind, that's super. That's all you got to remember. And Joshua taught that, everything had to do with love and forgiveness and kindness. And I resonate with that just wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing within it all that I resonate with is, when he said, "You are my brothers and sisters," and I think he may have even said, "Do not worship me," because I know he said that to me in my connection to oneness.
Yeah, he did. And that's what
2019. He's
yeah.
like, "I don't want to be worshipped. You are my brothers and sisters. You are equally. This is all equally available to you."
Right.
Yeah.
God loves us all equal because we are God and God loves himself. So
Mhm.
yeah, it seems complicated, but I've had 23 years of people reinforcing, that it made sense to them. So I could kind of let my guard down a little bit and accept a new idea that it wasn't stamped on me when I was a kid in school. And it's really tough letting those things go. I mean, I still go to mass with my mom and my sister, and that's hard. I can't say any of the prayers, and they're looking forward to the resurrection of the dead. Come on. One guy really got on me on that. He was a Mormon guy we ran into in Utah. He said, "No, we're going to get our bodies back, but they'll be glorified." I said, "Dude, spoiler alert. There is no bodies in heaven. It's spirits. Leave the body here." And he goes, "Oh, I don't think I like that. I don't think that's going to work for me." I said, "Well, like it or not, sport, that's what happens."
I was going to ask you about that. Like when you saw your body, did you ever see a reflection of yourself or what you looked like when you were in your experience?
No. And yeah, people ask me that all the time. It's like, did you look down and see your feet? All right. How many times a day do you look down and see your feet like you're changing your shoes? No, I didn't. And there were no mirrors and I didn't have a watch. And no, it's just an eternal now. There's no time. And you're just you because your spirit is you. This is just a car. An older car. I got a lot of miles on this car, but I love it. It's just a little few dents here and there, but this is my car. And when I get out of my car, I'm not my car. I'm still me, the driver. So I really totally can get that now. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, because in my fourth death, I'm like, I literally said, "How do I start this vehicle?" Because I had to get back in. And then they told me to do a systems check. So I
how cute.
Yeah,
I love it.
So it's like my Earth spaceship. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. It confirms what I thought.
Yeah, so that's really cool that you say that because I'm like vehicle. I'm like, that's what they called it. That's what my higher self is. And same with like you said, if I remember in spirit, how funny we think we are and how much we think we understand here. You know what I mean? You're like, that's all I understand. Oh my gosh, I always say to Yeshua, the humor in what we call heaven is,
yes, God's got a sense of humor. We're like God and we have a sense of humor. I mean, that's the best thing. That was the worst thing about hell is nobody smiled. I mean, it was nobody got the jokes I had. And I mean, I was trying, man. I was trying to be me and that wasn't funny. No, but to make that, and it was so interesting to come back finally, like I say, and say, okay, I was in an earthquake in Santa Cruz, California, the big one in '89. And I was under my desk. The town was falling down. There was people screaming and running and fires and explosions. And I was terrified and trying to get on the highway to go home. That was the first scene of hell.
I was going to say,
and so I can find all those pieces now. So I thought, okay, that was one of the worst things that ever happened to me. And the thing with the abortions, my baby died and I used to be with a pro-life group. And so that all was just awful. And I was raped. And so that scene was magnified. And so you make your own hell. And that almost was good news for me to have those realizations. It affirmed what had happened, that I manifested.
Did you feel that space amplified your fears and your experience just to see them on a different level and realize like you could get through it, like almost in a cleanse kind of thing?
Yes, absolutely. It's like, yeah, you are stronger than you think. You're braver than you think you are. You can do this. We all can. Right? We all can do this. We've got the people around us that bolster us up. And I love like this sort of a situation. I always say, well, we decided, you and I, we'll be, this time we know each other really well, but this time we'll only see each other a couple of hours, so we'll get together and we'll know that we planned this. And then when we get home, we'll laugh about it. Remember
Yep.
when you were that
Yep.
podcast host person? Yeah, it's
And then
again to laugh and just enjoy it. Just enjoy it.
I think that's so interesting that you say that too, because like I've had like confirmation, you know how near-death experiencers are often in that quantum now space, you know, and other people that have had near-death experiences, I've found like these weird coincidences, or like we connected or on something that later they did and I talk about, and they're like, but I made that, or I did that. I'm like, oh, okay, you know, but I get that we were in that space because we both experienced it. It doesn't matter when we experienced that death experience, we were in that space, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
interesting
Oh yeah,
like
when
that.
you go, oh, I know you from somewhere.
Yes.
I know you know, and then you see, oh, you look familiar too. What the heck? And now I know what that is.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And that I always call it that quantum entanglement. Like you know,
Yes.
yeah, because
Yes.
we were in
Mhm.
that stream, you know, that energy, that flow of source, I call it. So when you became one with it, you became one with everyone who's ever touched it. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It's
Yeah,
kind of
so
beautiful.
we are one. It's once you figure that out, don't you breathe a little easier? Things
Yes,
just don't bother you like they used to.
everything's the
It's very
small stuff.
freeing.
Yeah.
Everything's small stuff, or you planned it. That's cool.
And I think it makes me, you know, that's what I call getting that 360 view. If everyone is me,
Mm.
how would I want to be interpreted in that situation? How would I want to be forgiven? How would I want to be understood? It makes it a little more difficult to navigate because then, because you still have to that accountability and responsibility of that person for their actions, which you understand it on a deeper level that you don't take it personal, I feel. Have you
Mhm, mhm.
like what is your biggest takeaway from your experiences, would you say, that you'd want to share with people?
Well, um, other than the fact that don't go to hell, please don't go to hell. It's not fun, and you don't need to. You know, a God would never do that to you. Have the courage to maybe follow your instincts if you think something and your religion is not right. Allow yourself to question it and know that God is with you one way or the other. You're not going to offend God. You can't offend God.
And I think from my experiences, I've learned all paths lead home to source, you know. They just have a different understanding, a different perception. And
Mhm.
whatever's right for you in the moment, don't judge it. Because people just keep expanding and searching, and that's that curiosity and that playfulness is what creation is all about, I think.
It's all good. Mhm.
It's all good. Well, I thank you so much for sharing your
Oh,
story and your love and your light with us today. And I set intentions that, you're able to put more spaces out there for people to connect for distressing NDEs, because like you
yeah.
said, I feel it is so important and there's so much more out there, just too fearful to speak about it. And
Right.
knowing that there's that safe space for them is really important. So thank you for all the work you do and the advocacy for that. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Lorelei. I'm so happy you got your programs going too. That's
Thank you.
wonderful.
And thank you for supporting it. I really appreciate you being here. Have a blessed day. And thank you everyone
You
for
too.
joining us today. And just being open to Kathy's story. We love you and have a blessed day.
Bye.